grandson and my other grandchildren came to see me during the holidays. And one of my grandsons, he's 12 years old, and we were driving down the road in my truck. And he asked me, he said, "Grandpa," he said, "the way that we've been abusing the earth and all the bad things that we've done with all the pollution," he said, "do you think God's going to step in and fix all of that?" Well, it's a good question to ask. And of course, I explained to him about the fact that Jesus said he would come back one day, and that might be part of the solution. And I said, but then again, God may do some other things that might, kind of straighten things out. I said, I really don't know. I said, but I do know that for my part, little things like keeping my plastics and putting them along with other plastics to be recycled, and cardboard and aluminum cans. I said, I don't do near what I guess I could do. I said, but I try to do small things, and certainly, try to make sure that I don't litter and things like that. So things that would hurt the earth, I'm trying to be more conscious of what I can do as an individual. I said, and once I've done everything that I can do, all I can do is leave the rest up to God. And that seemed to answer his question. Well, my name is Richard Coleman, and I'm the pastor at Shepherd Church of the Nazarene in Lexington, South Carolina, and it's great to spend just a few moments with you today. Well, the holidays are over, and so I thought I would move into the Old Testament and look at where the Israelites are whenever we start the book of Exodus. When we look at Exodus, we see that when Jacob and his family moved into Egypt, supposedly for a short duration, while the famine was going on. And I don't really know why they stayed 400 years, but I think maybe part of it might have been they got comfortable in their surroundings, whatever it may have been. But as the family grew, the Egyptians, let me back up if I can, I'm thinking, and history thinks that whenever Joseph first went to work for the Pharaoh, it is believed that Pharaoh was not an Egyptian Pharaoh, but instead a nomadic group that had come in and had taken over Egypt at that time. And so therefore, having Joseph, an Israelite, to come in and be the number two man was not that big of an issue for him. But as the years went by, history tells us that the Egyptians were able to take back over their nation, and now there was an Egyptian Pharaoh who had no idea who Joseph was. All that was just past history. But he started noticing that the Israelites were just so many. I mean, it was just, they'd gotten up to over a million people, they say, and he started thinking about in his history how other nomadic people had come in, invaded their country, and took over their leadership. And he's thinking, if that were to happen again, and if these Israelites, who were not Egyptians, if they were to take the side of these other invading people, we wouldn't have a chance. And so he said, we need to do something. And so the strategy was they made all of the Israelites into slaves. And they just had them doing slave labor and took all their rights away, and they became slaves. So 400 years after Joseph came into Egypt to protect his family and so forth, we find the entire nation of Israel in Egypt, and they're slaves. Well, one of the things that the Pharaoh did after he made them slaves, he said, you know what, they're still growing. So let's do this. He called in the midwives. It was actually the Israelite midwives. He said, here's what I want you to do. I command you to do. He said, every time that a woman is going into labor and you go to assist in this, if you see that it is a boy, I want you to kill the boy. And obviously the Pharaoh wanted them to do it secretly. I don't know how, maybe strangle them or whatever, but make it look like the baby died in birth. And if it's a girl, Just let her be born, all is well. We're not going to worry about the girls. Well, the midwives, the Bible tells us, were women that loved God, and they just didn't think that was the right thing to do, and so they refused to do that. They didn't tell Pharaoh they refused, but they didn't do it. And so Pharaoh found out that the number of the male population was still increasing, and so he calls the midwives in and he says, "What's the deal here?" And they said, "Look," he said, "these Israelite women, they're just so fit that by the time we get there, the baby's already born and it's too late for us to do anything." And the Bible tells us that God blessed the midwives because of their willingness to do the right thing. Well, then Pharaoh comes up with another plan. He says, "Here's what we'll do. I'm not going to depend on the Israelites to help me. Now it's going to be the Egyptians." So he sent word to all the Egyptians, if you see a male baby anywhere, if any of the slaves that you have, if they have male babies, I want you just to grab that baby up and go throw them in the Nile and either drown them or let the alligators get them. But all male babies will be thrown into the Nile. But it was during this time that there was a man and woman, and they had a child. Their first child was a girl. No problems, all went well. They didn't have to worry about girls. And it kind of sounds like the girl had a few years on her, and then a little bit later, they end up having a male child. Well, they secretly kept that baby where nobody would know that the baby was around for 3 months. But after 3 months, you can only imagine it. The people started getting suspicious, and they knew that they were about to be found out. And so the mother did an interesting thing. She made a basket, and she made sure the basket was waterproof, and she put the baby in that basket, and then she put the basket in the Nile. So what she did was she did what the Pharaoh had commanded. She technically threw her baby into the Nile, but when she put him in the Nile, she put him in a waterproof basket. And then she told that young daughter, Miriam was her name, and said, "Miriam, if you will, how about just kind of keep an eye on that basket as it floats down the river?" And Miriam did. And when the basket got down the river just a little ways, then the Pharaoh's daughter found that basket. Well, the point that I'd like to make today, if I can, is I think about Moses, and that was who the baby was. Moses' mother was able to put her child in that basket because she wanted to protect her child. She wanted to do the right thing. But she put that baby in a basket and just let the baby float away. She had done everything that she could do. And when she realized she could do no more, she put the baby in the basket and just left the rest up to God. Have you ever had a situation where it was like, there's just no good way for this to turn out? This is just one bad thing after another, and I don't know what's going on. This is a brand new year, and maybe we've already seen things in our life where we're just wondering, what in the world are we going to do? Some people might be looking at their credit card statement after Christmas and saying, "Oh my goodness, I'm not sure how I'm going to ever get through this and be able to pay all these bills." It might be a health situation, it might be about relationships that have gone sour. I don't know what it may be, but it's like we just want to throw our hands up and what can we do? And I think if we look at Moses' mother and see what she did, she had done everything within her power to do the right thing. And then all she could do was turn it over to God. The end of the story we'll get to later, but what we find is God took care of the situation when it was left in his hands. I don't imagine it turned out the way that Moses' mother thought it would, but it turned out the way that God needed it to. So can we do that as we begin this year? Whatever our issues are, do what we can, and then turn the rest over to God and just give it to Him. Well, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you. May you truly trust in God as we begin this new year together. Thanks for taking the time and viewing today.